and welcome to another Optelec Enhanced Vision interview. So today I'm very happy to announce I'm being joined by Emma Cruickshank, who is with the Thomas Poklington Trust. So hello, Emma.
Hi Paul, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, I'm fine. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
You too, good.
So first of all, for those who aren't aware of Thomas Poklington Trust and what they're about, perhaps you could give us a bit of background on what the organisation is.
Yeah, certainly. I think it would be helpful if I actually give you a little bit of insight into Thomas Poklington himself.
Okay.
So Thomas Poklington was born in 1860 and he commenced his career as a jeweller. He ended up moving into property development, and at some point in his life he actually had a shooting accident and temporarily lost his vision. Luckily, the doctors were actually able to save his sight, which in Victorian times is amazing that they did that. But we actually think that inspired him to bequeath his estate to creating an organisation to support blind and partially sighted people. What Thomas did in his will, he actually declared that a suitable piece of land was bequeathed or was purchased, and that only 21 years after that land had been purchased could the land be used to create an establishment for the care and welfare of blind and partially sighted people. So that enabled the assets to accumulate over that 21-year period, which was very fortuitous because obviously property and land increased. And then in 1958, the charity was born. So 21 years there or thereabouts after this will, and the gift of Thomas Poklington Trust was born.
Okay.
Today, we know the charity to be known as Thomas Poklington Trust. So it's no longer called the gift, it's Thomas Poklington Trust. And that came about in 2008 following quite a strategic review, at which point we also recognised as a charity, because we used to provide housing, specialised housing for blind and partially sighted people.
Okay.
The charity did was move away from doing that and look at how they could support blind and partially sighted people in quite a different way. So where we are today and how we support people is we have a core strategy which focuses on education, employment and engagement. And on top of that, we also are a grant funder. So we provide funding for other organisations whose work fits in with our core aims and strategic goals.
Excellent. Okay, so you've certainly moved away, but I suppose most organisations naturally grow and change their chapters anyway. So no, that's very useful. And although I did know obviously a bit about Thomas Poklington himself, I didn't know his background on how he got into it. So yeah. I learned something from that as well.
Yeah, so, and I think for me it's fascinating that they were actually able to restore his vision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We think that experience that he had, that shooting accident and that temporary sight loss, kind of led him to be so passionate about the welfare and at that point.
About sight loss, absolutely. Yeah. Without that, it wouldn't have happened, clearly. So yeah, absolutely. So your role within Thomas Poklington Trust as head of children's, young people's and families, could you maybe give us a bit more of an idea of what that role entails?
Yeah, so my role, it's a brand new role, and it came out of the strategic review that the charity did last year, when they recognised that actually blind and partially sighted children maybe didn't get the same opportunities that they necessarily should do as their sighted peers. So my role is to look at ages 0 to 25 and look at what the issues are that are facing blind and partially sighted children. So to give you an example, one of the pieces of work that we've recently completed was a mapping exercise. So the team went out, contacted 150 organisations across the UK to find out what services they provide. And we found that there's quite a mix of services. So we've got organisations that provide services for children and young people. We've got organisations that don't provide anything, but might be interested in providing services. So part of my role is to look at that and actually look at how we can support organisations to do that. Because that's obviously one of my sort of areas of work.
Okay.
And on top of that, obviously looking at education provision and how can we ensure that blind and partially sighted children are able to attain and have as equal an opportunity as their sighted peers.
Okay, that's quite a big role. That's quite a large role.
It is quite a big role when you take into account that in the UK, between the ages of 0 to 16, there are over 25,000 blind and partially sighted children.
Yes.
Just in that 0 to 16 age group. So that there's a lot of children out there. And then half of those children also have additional needs as well.
Yes.
So they may just, they'll have vision impairment, but they may have an additional disability as well. So it's kind of looking actually, how can we support organisations either within the sector or within the sight loss sector or outside of the sight loss sector to enhance that offer to make services more inclusive.
Absolutely. And that's so important. That's so important, more than ever. So regarding the elephant in the room, which is the coronavirus, which has obviously affected everybody massively, certainly for how we operate and how we will operate moving forward. How has that affected Thomas Poklington Trust and obviously ultimately your role, bearing in mind the status with the lockdown with the schools and colleges and the services that were traditionally in place and traditionally being provided? How has that changed for yourselves?
I think we're obviously in unprecedented times, so it's changed quite a lot. What we've been doing as a team is obviously keeping in touch with the education department, the sort of Department of Education, to sort of monitor what the changes are, because there's been relaxations around educational healthcare plans. So we've been trying to kind of monitor what that is and get messages out to parents to say, actually, how things were sort of 6 months ago, what you're entitled to at this current point, it's relaxed. There's been a relaxation around the provision of support.
Okay.
So that's obviously been one of the things. And we've also worked with other national sight loss organisations to respond to the Education Select Committee. They were doing an inquiry into the impact of COVID-19 on education and children's services. So there's a cohort of us that have worked together and we've surveyed parents to get their experiences. And then we've submitted the experiences that parents have shared, as well as recommendations for the future.
Okay.
So in the event that we have something like this that could happen again, and we all know that pandemics do happen, how can the Department of Education be more robust to make sure that children have the correct access to learning and that they're not being left behind? And obviously at the moment what we're finding is vision impaired children, and this isn't across the board, but there are children who are being left behind through not being able to sort of have the correct materials in the accessible formats that they need. They might not be able to take their accessible equipment, specialist equipment home with them. So there's a lot of challenges. And then when you also look at the fact that formal qualifications have been postponed for this year.
Yes.
And it's looking at how are vision impaired children actually going to get the grades that they deserve as well. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to kind of look at this sort of almost sort of lobbying and campaigning. We've seen that obviously next year they're looking at whether formal qualifications will happen in their normal time frame or whether they'll be moved. And again, there's repercussions for children across the board. So that's one of the things that sort of me and my team have been working on.
Okay.
But more broadly, across colleagues within Thomas Poklington, they've worked with, again, a great sort of collaborative approach with other sightless organisations to actually lobby around, the issues for supermarket shopping. So
Yes.
when the lockdown happened initially, blind and partially sighted people were really sort of left behind in actually being able to access online shopping slots. So there's been a huge amount of work across the sector to actually lobby supermarkets, particularly, and working with DEFRA to say, can we look at how, this group of people who really, do need those sort of online shopping slots can actually get them. And we're pleased to say that, there's now like a priority helpline that's been set up so that people can phone, so they can actually sort of be part of their sort of priority list.
Absolutely.
I haven't finished there, Paul, because as I mentioned previously, so Thomas Poklington Trust is a grant funder. So they provide funds. But when the pandemic happened, our strategic partnerships team actually stopped its main body of grant funding at that point and kind of took a view as to what did the sight loss sector need. And I'm really pleased to say that they've provided over £500,000 worth of funding to 55 organisations across the UK, which is just an astronomical amount.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's great to know that, and for me, it's great to be part of an organisation that actually says, right, okay, we've got this funding that we can support other organisations. It's just, yes, great to be part of that.
Absolutely, that is an amazing figure, and again, obviously, the charity sector it is under as much pressure as every other sector, if not more so in many ways. So I'm sure that has been very well received and very well appreciated, and it's nice to know that the priorities are. And I totally agree with you in regards to the accessing of services for all children. I mean, we've seen things on the news ourselves on how the lockdown has affected just families and children in normal circumstances. So I can only imagine the extra compounded difficulties somebody with sight loss who doesn't have access to the equipment that they may normally have access to, how fundamentally it hinders them. So yeah, it's good to know that you clearly have been working in the background now, because I've been seeing a lot of information from various sectors, which certainly rings a bell with what you've just been saying. So
yeah, and I think what has been great and what I've really got a lot out of is actually working with other organisations as well to kind of say, and sort of pooling our resources. To kind of say, actually, we need to respond to this inquiry, or we need to lobby, we need to campaign, and we'll do it together. And I think that has a really big impact to help those people that just really need that. So yes, it's I think the pandemic, and we already did quite a lot of that anyway. But when you're in the kind of situation that we are now, and circumstances change, it's just great that we've all sort of pulled together to kind of say, actually, what should we be doing, and how can we do this?
Exactly, and being in a position to actually do it as well. It's not just wish list. You've actually been a concept. These such unusual times to be so forward in many ways and offer this from the get-go from it all. So no, again, that's a credit to the organisation. And
I think so. And I mean, I sort of mentioned our strategy earlier, and we've got across the country, we have sight loss councils.
Yes.
So sight loss councils are region-based, and they're made up of volunteers who are so passionate and so proactive. And they're coming together, and they look at sort of things like transport, health, sport and leisure, education, employment. They look at they've got sort of 6 core sort of work streams that they really focus on and really passionate about. And the work that they've been doing has just been amazing to kind of say, actually, on the ground, these are the challenges that we've got. So it's not just us as professionals saying, oh, we think this is what the challenges are. it's actually working with
Yeah,
people
yeah,
experiencing it
yeah.
and to kind of say, this is what we've been told, and kind of lobbying the people, the organisations, that this is what you need to do to change it.
Absolutely. It's, as in most things, it's a two-way street. It's the feedback that you can then use to help people even more. And I'm a massive believer in that. It's if you can all have a million ideas, but how many can come to fruition, and how many are actually going to be beneficial, as opposed to asking somebody else, well, what is it you need? How can we help you? Listening to that information and working with them to provide that. So no, again, that's very good. So the other thing, again, integrated with all this was this toolkit. I keep hearing about this toolkit, the CYPF, but I believe even that is now a change. And of course, you've mentioned some of the work you're doing. How is that integrated with parent guidance and such like?
Okay, so we've got frameworks. So what we've done is part of the Children, Young People and Families team, as I alluded to earlier, is to support organisations to either enhance or set up services for children, young people, and parents and carers as well, because they need support.
Absolutely.
So we had a toolkit originally, or a checklist, and earlier this year we did an evaluation. So we contacted organisations that had used this previously to get feedback about what worked for you, what could we do differently, and from that we've now developed a framework. So the framework that we have for local sightless organisations is very much a step-by-step approach of everything that you need to take into account if you are looking at setting up services for blind and partially sighted children. So it covers all your sort of topics. So you've got your governance topic, you've got your charitable objectives, are they fit for purpose, down to things like, do you need to be sort of food safety trained if you're looking at providing food?
Okay.
So it's one of those sort of documents, and it's really easy to use. But it's just that sort of step-by-step approach. If you are looking at setting up a new service, how are you going to do it? What are your aims and objectives? Who's your sort of target audience? How are you going to engage with them? How do you know it's what they want? And is it going to be sustainable? And particularly sustainability in the charity sector is just, it's so important, about setting up services, but then can you actually sort of continue to deliver them? And then you can build funding in. So we've created that, and it's due to go live fairly soon. So first person that I'm kind of talking to sort of quite publicly about this.
Okay.
Hot off the press, Paul. So but just really excited about it. And along with that as well, we've also created additional resources for organisations. So, if they're not sure about the right sort of safeguarding requirements, risk assessments, all that type of stuff, we've just got a suite of resources that are available as well.
Wow, okay. You have been busy.
Well, it doesn't stop there, because in our team, we have family coordinator.
Okay.
Got years of experience of support for families, basically. And what they've been doing is they've also looked at actually how can we support other parents to sort of self-advocate. So they've been working on a document as well, which is due to go live over the summer. And again, that's going to be kind of like, what if you wanted to set up your own peer support group as a parent, what kind of things do you need to talk about? And what's been quite interesting is for us, so you mentioned about how's COVID impacted our work. So we're all having to work very digitally now, but we're also having to take into account like safeguarding, protecting people's data, if you've got WhatsApp groups, how does that impact? So we've been able to sort of fit back to some of that information in, so that parents, if they're looking at that, they've got those kind of sort of key considerations.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's quite a lot.
Sorry, I get really excited. I haven't finished yet.
Please continue. Please continue. It's fascinating because again, from our point of view, we look at all types of organisations, and look at wonder what these are doing, and wonder how they work. And we presume a lot. We do this with charities, both local and national. Oh yes, they do this, do that, but there's so much more behind the scenes that you never really get to know about, and it's great to actually find find out about some of this information. So
yeah, well, so one of our big pieces of work at the moment, one of the other managers is working on the team, is it's quite an unusual abbreviation, but I'll give you the full title. So it's Careers, Education, Information, Advice and Guidance, which abbreviated is CEAG. So what we've been hearing and what we've been learning previously is that children who are in that kind of year 8, year 9 sort of cohort,
okay,
maybe aren't getting the type of careers advice that they need, that takes into account that they're a person with a visual impairment. Particularly following, there was an organisation called Connections, so that's now closed a few years ago. What we're looking at is actually how can we better understand the impact that the closure of Connections has had, because it's left some gaps within local authorities. So we've been working with qualified teachers of the vision impaired, so QTVIs. We've had 3 focus groups with those professionals to get their sort of first-hand experiences, which is, that's providing a wealth of experience, and probably, as you would expect, quite sort of differences across the country. So it's only focusing on England, but across the country there are different experiences. But we've also gone out to survey young people that have gone through that whole experience.
Okay.
To actually get their first-hand experience, what worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. And then we're also looking at the type of work experiences that students have as well. Because, again, we've had feedback that some students have great work experiences and opportunities, and others maybe less so. And we want to sort of level the sort of playing field and say, well, actually, everyone has a great work experience. Because if you have a great work experience, hopefully that's going to help you with your future career aspirations and help you get into kind of that sort of mentality of wanting to go to work. Because work is fun, yes. and we want it to be, we want that to kind of be the norm, that blind and partial sighted children, young people have really good sort of career placements. So we're doing this sort of research study at the moment, and the report is going to be out later this year. And then from that, obviously, we need to look at the findings and what can we do as an organisation, but also as a sector, working with sort of non-sight loss organisations as well, to sort of shape and enhance career provision, career information, advice and guidance for those young people.
Okay. No, again, it's that forward thinking. You're always looking at what else can be done, what else can be changed, what can be modified, what else as a brand new idea and concept. And then, like you say, once you've got the information, maybe creating another framework and
well, I think once
branches surface.
Yeah, well, I think that the framework would be just the tip of the iceberg, because there's so much that we could actually do, working with other organisations. But I don't want to say too much because
no, absolutely. But
to get the report back, because that's our research, that's our evidence base to shape things moving forwards.
Yeah, and again, that's vitally important, and it has to happen all the time. And you say these things do take time to get that information. That's one of the accurate information on that one. And congratulations for doing that. Certainly during the last few months, which is not been easy for anybody on that side. So it's
because you mentioned how do we work. So originally the focus groups were going to be face to face, and it was like, right, okay, so we can't do that, so we move it online. So yeah, so it's things like that. But it's not just my team. You know, we had volunteering week in June, and having to do our volunteering events, doing those online instead of doing them face to face, and making sure that they were accessible. Yeah, so it has been quite a bit of a shift change in how we worked, but we've all continued to work and to organisationally to pull together and to support each other, but also to still be there for blind and partially sighted people.
Yeah, which is vitally important. So
yeah, and then one of the things, so I've been sort of talking about education and careers advice. So Thomas Poklington Trust didn't just stop there. So in April, obviously lockdown, launched a brand new service. So one of my colleagues has launched a student support service. So the student support service is basically, it's aimed at blind and partially sighted young people who are looking to go to college or university. And the team is offering, they've got a support line, so they've got a telephone line, and they've got an email address. So for those young people who are probably quite concerned about what their options are and what their opportunities are, our team can help guide and support them through. And it's kind of like sort of like putting a nice little sort of virtual arm around people to say, actually, you know, we can help you through what is chat. I mean, I know when I was going to university, it was quite challenging. So let alone trying to go to university with, you know, a vision impairment and during a pandemic.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. But the service isn't just for the pandemic. The service is, that's it. You know, it's launched in the pandemic, and it's up and running. So yeah. So.
Certainly, you've got a heck of a lot on. So,
as a charity, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, well, that's good to know. You know, it gets to the point where I was going to ask you if there's anything else new, but I think you've pretty much.
Our employment team. So they are working with people across the country digitally to try and get more people either looking at getting into work and looking at their CV. We're providing webinars. We've got other professionals from outside that are assisting with those. They're also looking at, if you want to kind of do like a sort of career change or, enhance your career, they're still there supporting people to get into employment or to progress through their career.
Excellent.
So, yeah. And then for my team, because I know I've kind of covered my colleagues as well and some of the work they've been doing. So for my team, our family coordinator has been liaising with other family coordinators from across the country. And we've had an absolutely tremendous response from people. So we're setting up a sort of professional network of family coordinators that work specifically within the sector. So considering, local sector organisations, they've had to furlough quite a few staff. National organisations have had to do the same. And we've had a great response. And we've had feedback saying, how, we so need this. We can't wait for this to happen. So, yeah, so we've got that going as well. So we're doing a lot of sort of supporting professionals through this as well.
So much in the background. It's insightful.
Yeah.
It's, what's happening and what has been happening, and obviously for the future of what plans are. So it's brilliant. So, well, I'd just like to thank you very, very much for joining us today. As I say, it's been a very useful, very interesting conversation. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me along. And obviously, if anyone wants to find out more about what we do, you can check out our website, which is Poklington-Trust. Or if you just do a Google search, Thomas Poklington, you'll be able to get to our website. So yeah, I'm sure
your own information is available upon request as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So again, thank you very much for joining us today. So yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.